Xiaomi's Redmi series caters to the budget audience. Last year's Redmi 8 was such an impressive device that I personally recommended it to many people. Its successor, the Redmi 9, offers a better chipset and quad cameras. And with Samsung launching so many overpriced phones of late, like the Galaxy M11 and the Galaxy A21s, it only leaves the Realme C3 or the Narzo 10A as the only viable competitor in the market. Even if you look at the spec sheet, well, it's evident that the Redmi 9 is the clear winner. Anyways, let's unbox this device now. Alright, so this box has a pretty standard Redmi packaging. Let me unbox it. There you go. First, we have a mini paper box wherein we have the SIM ejector tool. We have some paperwork and the silicone case. Keeping this aside, we have the phone itself in the purple color. I'm gonna take this off. Okay. So keeping this aside, we have the charging brick, which is a 10-watt brick, and then we have the USB Type-C charging cables. Alright, so now that we're done with the unboxing, let's get to the design first. And to be honest, considering the price, this design looks and feels really good. It's not glossy like the Redmi Note 9, rather it has this textured matte finish which really helps prevent smudges. The phone is a little wide though. I don't know if you've noticed, but mostly Xiaomi phones are a little wider than the others. Anyways, I love the color and even the camera arrangement. It kinda shares an uncanny resemblance to last year's Redmi Note 8 Pro, and even the fingerprint sensor is at the same spot. I wouldn't say that this is the best placement for the sensor, as many times my finger reached the camera sensor while trying to unlock the device. But I guess you'll get used to it after some time. The performance of it is fast and accurate, except for the times that your hands are wet or greasy. And yes, like many other Xiaomi phones, this one also has an IR blaster. Down below, you have the USB Type-C port along with the headphone jack and a single firing speaker, both of which have an average audio output. Overall, I like the design of this phone considering its budget price. It is well built and looks good too. Moving on, this phone also provides a full HD display at this price range. Most of the other brands like Samsung and Realme have skimmed on this aspect by providing an HD display, but thankfully that's not the case here. It's a 6.5 inches panel with a 20:9 aspect ratio, vibrant enough colors, and acceptable contrast levels. As opposed to the Realme C3 or the Narzo 10A, the display here has good sharpness, so that's nice. The brightness is also plenty enough for indoor usage, but outdoors you will wish for some more luminance. And comparing its display against the more expensive Redmi Note 9, it is pretty much the same display except for the notch and the inferior Gorilla Glass 3 protection that you get on the Redmi 9. But again, the highlight feature of this display remains the fact that it is a full HD panel, which we usually don't get in other phones of this price range. Moving on to the performance, here too I am really satisfied. Not only it has a much better performance than last year's Redmi 8, but I even compared its performance with the more costlier Redmi Note 9 and found it keeping up really well. What do I mean by that? Well, let me explain. I ran a couple of tests for multitasking, app opening, and video rendering and found that the Redmi 9's Helio G80 competes with the Helio G85 of the Redmi Note 9 very well. Yes, the Redmi Note 9 is slightly faster, but the Redmi 9 is a very close second. For what it's worth, I found it to be very impressive. Surprisingly, I found the gaming on the Redmi 9 to be better than the Redmi Note 9. Playing PUBG in smooth graphics and ultra frame rates resulted in a smooth experience in the Redmi 9, whereas you might know from our review that it's a bumpy ride on the Redmi Note 9. And it's not just in that setting, but even if you go higher to HD graphics and high frame rates, the Redmi 9 will serve you better in PUBG. Similarly, playing Call of Duty was also quite good on the Redmi 9. A couple of Call of Duty sessions in high frame rates and high graphics was susceptible to a few lags here and there, while toning down the graphics to medium gave me gameplay with no issues at all. With all this, it's kind of self-explanatory that running normal tasks on the device will not be a problem at all. However, while multitasking, sometimes you do feel like apps take some time to load. By the way, the unit I have has 3GB RAM and 32GB internal storage, but if you're really opting to buy this phone, I would suggest you go for the 4GB RAM variant for slightly better performance. Also, you get a dedicated micro SD card slot for further storage expansion, which is always a plus. Overall, with the Redmi 9, you're getting almost similar performance to that of the more expensive Redmi Note 9, and in the gaming regard, it's even better. Software-wise, the Redmi 9 runs on MIUI 11 on top of Android 10. It's a pretty heavy UI, so sometimes you might feel that navigating through the UI is not buttery smooth. I also have felt some lag while closing PUBG app and getting back to the home screen. Also, one problem that has always prevailed in budget Xiaomi devices is the ads, and here too you get presented with ads in instances such as when you install an application. Alright, let's get to the cameras now. Like the Redmi Note 9, there are 4 cameras at the back, but instead of a 48 megapixel primary lens, you get a 13 megapixel sensor here, followed by an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and a 5 megapixel macro lens. The normal daytime pictures from the Redmi 9 have good enough details and colors too. They are fairly sharp and have decent dynamic range. I even compared its cameras to the Redmi Note 9 and surprisingly found very little differences among them. The images almost look similar. However, with the Redmi Note 9, you get slightly better details, but overall these cameras give a very similar output. However, the image quality is strictly limited to daytime, as during the nighttime the Redmi 9 takes miserable shots. Also, there is no comparison between the nighttime capabilities of the Redmi 9 and the Redmi Note 9 because the Note 9, as evident from these samples, has way better details and exposure maintenance. Also, you don't have a night mode feature on the Redmi 9. Okay, about the portraits, you get decent shots from the Redmi 9 and they are comparable to the Redmi Note 9 as well. I have even found the Redmi 9 doing better sometimes in terms of the subject. But when you look at the details in subjects, the Redmi Note 9 does better. Ultra-wide-angle images are not sufficiently vibrant and lack details in almost all the instances. The dynamic range most of the time does not function that well too. But in good lighting, you can get a few good shots like this one. The fourth lens here is a macro sensor that works well enough. They are not wow, but justify the price nonetheless. Selfies share the same story as that of the daylight shots. The 8 megapixel selfie camera produces decent details and color in the selfies. If you look at these images I took from both the Redmi 9 and the Note 9, you will find a lot of similarities in color tone, exposure management, and even details. Video capabilities on the Redmi 9, just like the Redmi Note 9, is limited to 1080p 30 fps only. Both of them lack proper details and stabilization too. So vlogging as such is not a possibility with this phone. However, it can record good enough videos for general purposes. So after all the testing and such, what I've come to realize is that the Redmi 9 and the Redmi Note 9 both have very similar camera capabilities. And this camera is definitely better than that of the Galaxy M11 or the Realme C3. So what we can say is that the Redmi 9 possibly has the best camera for this price range. Apart from the cameras, another best thing about the Redmi 9 is its battery life. In normal usage, I have got more than a day's backup every time. Even if you are a heavy user, you will get a whole day of juice with one single charge, which is very impressive. But what's not impressive is the fact that this phone comes with a 10-watt charger inside the box that takes about 3 hours to get fully charged. However, with the 18-watt fast charger, it took me about 2 hours and 30 minutes. Overall, I think right now the Redmi 9 is the best budget phone by quite a margin. It offers the best performance in its price range and also comes with a full HD panel. Likewise, its camera capabilities are very identical to the Redmi Note 9, which is another plus for the device. And if you're confused between getting the Redmi 9 and the Redmi Note 9, I would suggest you go for the Redmi 9, as it is like 3000 rupees cheaper for the 4GB RAM and 64GB storage variant, and also there aren't too many noticeable differences between the two except for the design. Instead, I would invest the extra cash in getting myself a pair of wireless earbuds or a fitness tracker.